My name is Mark, I'm 34. I'm a solutions architect at a big Texas company that does cloud tech. Simply put, I design systems so data doesn't fall into a black hole. I've been working from home since 2020, and as it turned out, that played a nasty trick on me. Behind these walls, I only saw the dog, my laptop, and my wife. My wife's name is Emma. She's 32. She's a mid-level HR director at a fintech startup that grew into a large firm. She's beautiful in that strict, polished way that looks good on corporate photos. Dark hair pulled into a bun, a sharp gaze, always fresh manicure. When I married her 6 years ago, I thought she was the smartest, most reliable woman in the world. We met at an HR conference. I was there as the IT department's representative, and she charmed me with how she argued with some sales guy about corporate ethics. She said back then, "Any conflict can be resolved if you know which buttons to press." I laughed. How right I was. She knew the buttons. My buttons. We didn't have kids. Emma said, "Career first, mortgage, then kids. I don't want to babysit an infant when I'm up for a promotion." I agreed because I wasn't eager to change diapers until 35 either. We had a Labrador, Toaster, a dumb, perpetually drooly dog that I loved more than anything. We had a house in a quiet Austin neighborhood with a lawn that I paid a gardener for. 2 cars. My Tesla Model 3, bought on installments, and her old Ford Escape that was always coughing. And there was the gym. Emma always watched her figure. A year ago, she signed up at a new elite fitness club called Iron Horizon, on the outskirts. Expensive, with a juice bar, private locker rooms, and, as I later found out, young, fit trainers in tight t-shirts. Her trainer's name was Mike. To her, he was a functional training expert. He was 29, had a wife named Chloe, and 2 little boys, 3 and 5. I'd seen him once in an Instagram photo Emma posted, buff, square-jawed, holding a barbell and smiling as if he knew a secret. Back then, I didn't think much of it. Everything shattered on March 9th. I remember the date because the day before was International Women's Day, and I'd bought Emma a small diamond necklace for $4,300 at our local jeweler. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "You're so sweet, Mark." Only later, replaying it in my head, did I remember that there wasn't an ounce of warmth in that kiss. Just habit. That evening, she said she'd be late at work for a strategy session, from 6 to 10 p.m. At work, I ordered pizza, played with Toaster, then sat down to play Cyberpunk 2077. Around 11 p.m., my phone died, and I reached for the charger on my bedside table. And I saw her work laptop. It was lying on the rug, covered by a notepad. Weird. She never left her laptop at home. It had tons of confidential data. She was constantly checking email even in the bathroom. I thought about ignoring it. But the laptop pinged. A notification lit up on the screen from Slack. The corporate messenger. I glanced over, and I read. From Coach_Mike86. Text. Same hotel tonight? I got that bottle and the cuffs, like you like them. Waiting, sunshine. Missed you for 3 days. You can't imagine how much I want to repeat the way you howled last time. I read it 3 times. Sunshine. Cuffs. She howled. For the first 5 seconds, I felt nothing. Then I was hit by such a wave of nausea that I thought I'd throw up right on the carpet. I don't know what it was. Jealousy, anger, or just disbelief. Like a computer freezing on a blue screen. I knew it was wrong to look at someone else's laptop. But in that moment, I didn't give a damn about ethics. I needed to know. Was my wife, who'd said, "Good night," 2 hours ago and driven off to the office, actually going to a hotel with some Mike? But I didn't know the laptop password. However, we had a shared family iPad that sat in the kitchen. And Emma, being a smart HR manager, stored all her passwords in the iCloud keychain. She thought I didn't know how to use that section. She was wrong. I found the Slack password in 2 minutes. Logged into her account. The conversation with Mike started on July 20th of last year. First message. "Hi, trainer. Thanks for the workout. My glutes hurt so bad." He replied with an emoji. 3 days later, they were discussing how she'd never gotten so much pleasure from sports before. I scrolled forward a month. August 14th. "Mike, are you free tomorrow night? Mark is going to Dallas for a conference Thursday through Sunday. We can get a room at the Hyatt. Just don't tell Chloe I'm married, okay?" He didn't tell. Because Chloe, as I later learned, thought her husband was staying late for evening training sessions. I read all the messages over 8 months. It took 4 hours. I took screenshots. Hundreds of screenshots. Emailed them to myself in folders. Pictures of hotels, selfies of Emma in lingerie I bought her. She sent them to Mike. Check this out. Stories about how Mark wanted to have sex today, but I wasn't even turned on. I said I had a headache. They laughed at me. Discussed how to sell my watch collection, Omega, Seiko, and Rolex, several pieces worth $5 minus 8K each. She called my collection an investment in idiocy. The worst message was from February 1st. Emma wrote to Mike. I did the math. If we sell the house, his share goes to the mortgage, and we'll put my share into your Florida account. I already found a space for a studio in Tampa. Your fitness business will be my divorce present to myself. And we'll leave Mark the dog. He loves that mutt more than me. I read that sentence 20 times. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning a financial wipeout and a move to another state with my money. As if I wasn't a person, but an ATM with legs. At some point, I cried. Not out of self-pity. I don't know why. Maybe because 6 years of life, 6 years of renovations, trips, attempts to understand each other, all of it was a lie. She only saw me as a way to cash in. At 1 a.m., a key turned in the lock. Emma walked in. She smelled of expensive men's cologne and alcohol, white wine, sweet. She pecked me on the forehead without even looking me in the eyes and said, "The meeting was hell. Go to sleep, honey, I'm hopping in the shower." She didn't even notice that I was sitting on the couch in the same clothes as during the day, with red eyes. I replied, "Good night," lay down in bed next to her, and didn't close my eyes until morning. Stared at the ceiling and made a plan. Many people in this situation start yelling, tearing things up, breaking dishes. Not me. I'm an IT guy. My job is to find vulnerabilities and patch them. I realized I had a rare opportunity. She didn't know that I knew. She thought I was blind, boring, robotic. That meant I had time and the element of surprise. The next morning, I acted normal. Made coffee. Petted toaster. Said, "Have a good day," to Emma as she left with her huge bag. She didn't even turn around. I closed the door, sat down at my computer, and started working. Slowly, methodically, as if it were just another complex project at work with a 6-month deadline. First, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the best family lawyer in Austin, Mitchell Graves. People said he could strip any opponent down to their underwear and still get an apology. The consultation cost $500. I paid in cash, withdrawn in small amounts from ATMs in different neighborhoods to avoid leaving a trail in the statements. Mitchell was a man in his 60s, bald, with the face of a tired bulldog. I went to his office without Emma and said the case was confidential. He listened, looked through the screenshots on my laptop. Asked, "Do you just want a divorce and to forget, or do you want to destroy?" I said, "I want her not to get a cent more than she's legally entitled to. And I want Mike to end up with nothing." He smiled. First time during the consultation. Said, "That's what I like. Rules. Nothing illegal. No threats. No hacking email. Just what you found legally. The facts have to be flawless. And no public revenge until you have irrefutable evidence, including recordings from cameras." I nodded. The first thing I did was buy 2 hidden cameras. Not cheap Chinese ones, but decent ones with good night vision and microphones. Cost $800. Ordered them on Amazon under a fake name, a friend's. One camera went into the living room, inside a wall clock. The second went into the bedroom, inside a smoke detector. Texas law allows recording in common areas of your own home. Just not in the bathroom or toilet. I checked. Then I took 3 weeks off from work. Told my boss it was for family reasons. He didn't pry. I told Emma I was going to Dallas for company training and would be staying in a hotel. She pretended to be upset and immediately wrote to Mike. I saw via the iPad copy, "Our robot is leaving for 3 weeks. Paradise. Come over Thursday night, the house is ours." On Thursday, I demonstratively loaded a suitcase into the car, kissed her on the cheek. The memory still makes me nauseous, got into the Tesla, and drove off. Drove 3 blocks, parked at a 7-Eleven, switched to my brother's car, he was waiting for me. Returned to my own house through the back door with keys that only I had. Went into my home office, locked myself in, drew the curtains. Turned off the computer, put my phone on silent. Sat in the chair, set up the cameras on my laptop, put on headphones and waited. At 8 p.m., Mike arrived. I recognized him from photos. He was wearing a stupid hat with "no pain, no gain" on it. Emma and he went into the living room. She laughed, hung on his neck. 10 minutes later, they went into the bedroom. I watched it all through the cameras, feeling an odd calm. Like watching a movie about strangers. But the most interesting part came after sex, when they came back to the living room and opened some wine. Emma walked over to the display case with my watches. I'd been collecting them for 10 years. Several Omega Speedmasters, a Rolex Submariner, old mechanical Seikos. She opened the glass door, took off one Omega and handed it to Mike. She said, "I got an appraisal from a jeweler friend. This model is worth about $8,000 on the secondary market. We can sell it online in a couple of days. And this Rolex $12,000. If we sell 3 pieces, that's great startup capital." Mike turned the watch over. "Won't Mark notice? I'll say someone broke in or that he lost it himself when he went to a conference. He trusts me." Once he forgot his credit card in an ATM. I withdrew $400 and said they were technical expenses. He never even asked where the money went. The guy doesn't get involved in finances at all. For him, code is life, and money is just numbers. That's when I really felt sick. Not from jealousy, from the realization that she had been robbing me for years. That vacation in Europe we saved up for 6 months? She said then that tickets went up. We had to add another $1,500 from the joint account. I added. Now I realized that $1,500 went to her new bags or hotels with Mike. I kept recording. They discussed Florida. Mike wanted to open a CrossFit studio. Emma planned to invest $70,000. Exactly what we'll get from selling his damn watches if we sell them all. And the rest is my share of the house when I file for divorce at the end of the year. I'm waiting for my bonus at work in November, so I don't show my hand too early. She planned to file for divorce in 8 months. By then, she intended to bleed me dry. I saved all the recordings on 3 external drives and in the cloud. 1 copy went to my lawyer. I'm not a psychopath. I understood that Mike had a family. Chloe, his wife, didn't deserve to be part of this circus. I found her on Facebook in 15 minutes. Her page had cute cats, photos of the kids at parks, and posts like, "Mike's working late again, but I'm proud of him." My heart sank. She was living in an illusion. I messaged her on Messenger. As politely as possible. "Hello, Chloe. My name is Mark. I'm the husband of a woman named Emma who trains with your husband Mike. I have information that might be important to you. I don't want to cause drama, but if you want to know the truth about where your husband spends his evenings, let's meet without yelling. Barnes & Noble Coffee Shop on 6th Street. I'll be waiting tomorrow at 6 p.m., table by the window. If you don't come, I'll understand." She didn't reply for 12 hours. I thought it was a bust. But the next morning, a message came. "Mike came home at 1 a.m. again last night and smelled of perfume. I don't know who you are, but I'll come. Alone. Don't tell him." We met. Chloe turned out to be a small, slightly chubby woman with kind elementary school teacher eyes. She was indeed a teacher. She wore a comfortable cardigan. Her hands were shaking. I ordered her tea and started without preamble. I showed her screenshots from the conversation where Mike and Emma discussed how boring Chloe was, like a 1950s housewife, and how he was tired of pretending to love her pies. Chloe read, was silent for a long time, then said, "I knew. I didn't know the details, but I knew. He became cold, hardly sleeps with me. I found a receipt from a Holiday Inn hotel in his jacket pocket last month. He said he left it for a client. 3 days ago, I found condoms in his car's glove compartment. We haven't used those for 2 years. I have an IUD." She started crying, not loudly, quietly, sniffling. I gave her napkins and said, "I have a plan. I don't just want a divorce. I want them to lose everything they planned to steal. Would you be willing to team up?" She said, "What do I need to do?" I explained. I needed information about Mike's habits, his finances when he was free. Chloe told me that Mike had received an inheritance from his grandmother, $50,000, which she kept in an envelope in the closet, and they discussed buying a car. But now that money was gone. She found an empty envelope. He said he invested it. Now I understand. In what kind of investments? We exchanged numbers. Before leaving, Chloe said a phrase I remembered. "I've loved him for 8 years. But if the truth is that he spent my grandmother's money on hotels with someone else's wife, I'd rather be alone than with someone like that." That's where we left it. While Emma thought everything was going according to plan, I started slowly draining money from our joint pool. This was the riskiest part, because if she noticed, the plan would collapse. First, I accidentally missed a payment on the credit card we used for joint expenses. The bank charged a fee, the card was blocked. Emma was furious. "Mark, what are you doing? We have subscriptions to Hulu, Netflix, your gym membership, all on this card." I shrugged. "Mistake, honey. I'll transfer the money, but to a new card. Send me half of your paycheck to this account, and I'll set it all up." She transferred $3,000. I transferred my $3,000. That $6,000 went into an account that only I had access to. A week later, I said my company was delaying salaries for 2 months due to restructuring. I lied. I said we'd have to tighten our belts. Eat at home, cancel the weekly cleaning, sell 1 car. Emma went pale. "Are you kidding? My trip to New York with the girls is next month. I already bought tickets." "Sorry, honey, but the budget isn't flexible. Maybe you could take out a loan?" I said. She didn't take a loan. Instead, as I learned via the laptop, she wrote to Mike. "Mark says he's broke. We need to speed up the watch plan. Sell at least 2 pieces in April, and that'll be enough." I smirked. I'd moved the watches a week earlier. I took them out of the display case and put them in a bank safety deposit box under my brother's name. In their place, I put $50 Chinese fakes that looked similar from the outside. Emma didn't notice. She never knew anything about watches. I'd already realized that Emma had accomplices. Not just Mike. In her conversation with her best friend Lindsay, I found a goldmine. Lindsay was married to Jeff, who owned a construction company. I'd met them at barbecues. Lindsay constantly complained about her husband but lived off his money. So, in her chat with Emma, Lindsay discussed having an affair with Alex, a yoga instructor. And that she got pregnant by Alex. This was 3 months ago. Emma helped her find a clinic and loaned her $1,500 for an abortion. Meanwhile, Jeff, Lindsay's husband, was on a business trip in Houston. Emma wrote, "Jeff won't find out. I told him you needed the money for your mother's surgery. It worked." Lindsay replied, "You're a saint. I'd die if Jeff found out. He'd kill Alex." I saved that conversation too. And decided that Lindsay would be my emergency ace. If she spoke against me at the party, I'd show those messages to Jeff publicly. Cruel? Yes. But Lindsay covered for Emma's affair, encouraged her, even helped her pick out lingerie. She went with Emma to hotels as a lookout when Mike couldn't go out in public, so his wife wouldn't notice. So she wasn't a victim. Emma suggested having a barbecue a month later. I said, "Oh, great idea." And I even gave her $800 from my hidden safe for food and drinks. She was happy. "See, you can be generous." I knew she'd invite Mike. She couldn't help herself. She wanted to show him off to her HR colleagues. But she thought no one knew anything. I knew. I invited David, the owner of the gym. I emailed him from an anonymous account 2 weeks before the party. "Dear David. On April 14th, at our address, there will be a party. Your trainer Mike and his lover, a woman named Emma, will be there. They're discussing opening their own fitness business in Florida using your client database. Come at 7:30 p.m., and you'll see for yourself." I didn't know if he'd come. But I guessed right. He hated it when employees took client data. He came. Now, about the evening itself. At 6 p.m. on Saturday, we had about 35 people gathered. I set up chairs in the backyard and put the projector I used for football games on the porch. My IT friends, 3 guys, knew the plan and sat there like chess players about to crush their opponent. Emma was in her element. Red dress, hair down, margarita in hand. She laughed, hugged her colleagues. Occasionally glanced at the gate, waiting for Mike. At 7:30 p.m., David arrived. She didn't recognize him. I introduced them. "Emma, this is David. He's a big name in the fitness industry." She shook his hand, said, "Nice to meet you," and moved on. At 8 p.m., Mike arrived. Dressed up in a Lacoste polo and the shoes I'd seen in photos. He pecked Emma on the lips in front of everyone. Someone from HR looked surprised but didn't let on. Emma immediately pulled Mike into a corner. And then I made my move. I closed the kitchen door so no one could escape, connected my laptop to the speakers. Grabbed the microphone. "Friends, sorry to interrupt the music. I have a short video for all of you. Please turn your attention to the projector." I pressed play. It was an edited 3-minute clip from the living room and bedroom recordings. No sex acts, just dialogue. The audio was clear. On the projector, Emma takes my watches from the display case, hands them to Mike. Says, Omega for 8 grand. We'll sell it through a jeweler friend. Put the money in your Florida account. Mike. Won't Mark notice? Emma. He's a doormat. We can say you lost it. He doesn't even check receipts. Then, Emma's sitting on the couch, says, in 6 months, I'll file for divorce. We'll sell the house, my share will go to your studio. And this robot can live with his Labrador. I don't care if he dies or not, as long as I get the money. The crowd went silent as a tomb. I turned off the video. Emma stood there, white as a sheet. Mike's mouth hung open. I said into the microphone, this is my wife, Emma. And her lover, Mike, the fitness trainer. For 8 months, they've been screwing behind my back, planning to steal my belongings and run off to Florida. Just then, Chloe emerged from behind the bushes with her 2 sisters. She walked up to Mike, slapped him across the face, but not hard, more symbolic, and said, you're sleeping with this woman. You spent your inheritance money on hotels with her. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. You won't get the kids. And don't you dare come near the house. Mike tried to say something, but Chloe had already turned away. Then David spoke. He walked up to Mike, arms crossed. Mike, you're fired. I'm filing a lawsuit against you tomorrow for using my client database for personal gain. I've heard enough. Mike started yelling that it was all Emma's idea. Emma screamed back at him. You said you were leaving Chloe yourself. They started fighting right in front of the guests. I used the moment to pull out the second bomb. I turned to Lindsay, Emma's best friend, and said loudly, not into the mic, but everyone heard anyway. Lindsay, are you going to tell Jeff what you needed that $1,500 for? The abortion from Alex while your husband was on a business trip? Or should I do it for you? Jeff, who'd been standing by the grill with a beer, froze. Lindsay went as white as Emma. Jeff slowly put down the bottle, looked at his wife, then at me. What the hell is this, Mark? I said, ask her about the yoga and the clinic on 10th Street. Jeff turned crimson. Lindsay tried to run, but he grabbed her arm. The rest, their personal drama, not mine. Then I called the police to have Mike removed. The police arrived 10 minutes later, heard me out, saw the cameras. The officer said, this is a civil matter, but if he doesn't leave, we'll help. Mike left on foot toward the highway, cursing under his breath. Emma was left alone in the middle of the yard. Her HR colleagues stared at her in horror. One older woman from the department said, Emma, I'm speaking to the director tomorrow. We don't keep people who engage in financial fraud on the side and use company resources. I walked up to Emma, brushed an imaginary speck off her shoulder, and said quietly into her ear so no one else could hear. You thought I was a dumb robot? Robots just calculate more precisely. You have 30 days to move your things out. I've already filed for divorce. Lawsuits for emotional distress and attempted theft are pending in court. Goodbye. She cried. Genuinely. But I didn't care. 3 months later, I live in a new apartment with toaster. The court ruled that Emma will get 22% of the sale of the house, because I proved that 80% of the down payment was my inheritance, and her actions planning the Florida move constituted financial fraud. The house is sold. I got about $340,000 net. Emma got about $80,000. She worked at a coffee shop for a week but quit. I don't know where she is now. Rumor says she's living with her mother in San Antonio. Mike lost his wife, kids, job, and reputation. Chloe filed for divorce a week later. She got custody of the kids and stayed in their house. The court sided with the mother. David from the gym didn't actually sue Mike but fired him with a black mark. In the Austin fitness community, everyone knows about Mike, and no one will hire him. Lindsay and Jeff divorced. Jeff filed 2 weeks after the party. Lindsay ended up with nothing because they didn't have a prenup, but Jeff proved that part of the money was spent on an abortion for her lover. The judge awarded her minimal alimony. My watches are intact. Every single one is sitting in a bank safety deposit box. I talk to Chloe sometimes. She's become a friend. Not a lover, a friend. She says I gave her back her self-respect. Last weekend, she came over with the kids for a barbecue, and Toaster licked her youngest's entire face. Chloe said, if you hadn't messaged me that day, I'd still be living with a man who despised me. Thank you. I met Mia, a vet. We just have coffee. She knows I'm in the process of divorce and isn't pushing. She laughs at my jokes and doesn't call me a nerd. And you know what, Reddit? Sometimes I feel like a monster. I humiliated her publicly. I destroyed her career, her reputation, her friends. But then I remember her taking my watches off the shelf, calculating how much they'd bring for her new life without me. And the guilt fades. Don't be like Emma. And don't be like me, unless you're sure of your evidence. Update. Someone asked if I wasted 50,000 characters on this story. I answer. The only waste was the 6 years I lived with a traitor. These characters are my therapy. Update 2. Yes, I recovered the files from her laptop even after she changed the password. Don't ask how, but the lawyer said that was a gray area, so I didn't submit them in court. But for myself, I know. Update 3. Toaster got a ribeye steak today. The happiest dog in Texas.